Hi, it's Rick from Runner's World, and today I'm at Southwest Podiatry to find out if wearing super shoes changes my running form. And to help me, I've got Liam McManus from Southwest Podiatry and Jess Bruce from 3D1 Linty. So thanks very much. Liam, let's start with you. What exactly are we going to try and cover today?
We're going to actually look at one pair of shoes, which is a really flexible shoe, almost a traditional shoe. And we're going to look at your super shoes.
Yes.
And we're going to look at the difference using really high-tech 3D gait analysis.
Run 3D Limited. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how that works.
Yeah, sure. So we use 3D gait analysis. So I don't know if anyone's watching is familiar with kind of the way they load films and things like that. We're going to cover you in little dots, but instead of using the positions of the dots to create a cool animation, we're actually going to use it to measure exactly how you run. So we'll be able to measure how your pelvis is moving, how your hips are moving, your knees and your ankles, looking at you in 3D, so from the front, the back, the side, and also from the top down. So we should get some really good information about how these are changing your biomechanics and how you're moving.
Sounds good. All right, let's get started.
So we're going to really test your objective data. We're going to look at you running in two different types of shoes, including the super shoe as well. But tell me, before we do this, what injuries have you had over the last couple of years? Give me a little bit of information.
Yeah, sure. I've got a slightly tight right ITB issue, which kind of comes out on more to do with like slower running over longer distances. And I had minor knee surgery about 5 years ago. So I torn meniscus. It was quite a hard year after that. There was quite a lot of kind of getting back to running. I've been quite good at strength and conditioning off the back of that, because I felt like actually I really need to do this now. And then when I do faster trap running, particularly in one direction, I have some slight pain on my left ankle, just below the ankle bone on the outer side.
On the outside.
On the outside. Other than that, I'm fine.
And how often are you actually using a super shoe?
Yeah, I do super shoe, and sometimes that one, sometimes a different one, about once a week. It'd be like the key session, so like a track session or like intervals on the road, that kind of thing. I don't use them on long runs.
And then racing. So tell me about racing. So how often do you race? Give me the distances.
So I just did a 5-minute mile, and I did that in a super spike actually. Similar, I guess a similar thing, had a blade in it. I race about, I'd say 5 times a year. I used to race a lot more than that, but I found out that I was kind of getting slightly burnt out. So now I'm more like, well, I'll do a half, I'll do a 10K, maybe I go something like a mile. But at the minute, I think I'm concentrating on, I'd like to run a really good 5K would be the next challenge. Oh yeah.
Okay. Which shoe right now would you actually use for that 5K?
For the race?
Yes.
Definitely this one.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, shoe. For sure.
Or some variation of...
Some variation of the super shoe. I do feel like you get great propulsion on the super shoe. There's a fair amount of data, isn't there, to suggest that like your running economy goes up in the shoe. And maybe some of that's placebo, but I feel like when you put it on, you feel quicker, lighter, faster.
Springing forward.
Having said that, I mean, this shoe, as you can see, is quite well loved. And I've been running in that probably for about 5-6 years. Love the Nike Zoom Streak range. It's non-super shoe, and if I had to run in one shoe for like every section, I'd choose that over that.
It's something like this, which is really light, really flexible. The foot gives as well.
Yeah.
Whereas this one is super stiff.
Very stiff, yeah.
So it's going to propulse you forward. It's going to spring you forward.
Yes.
And that's what you like about it, because you want to go faster, right? And you've got this goal of having a 5K super speed.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, fine. How do you feel in this though? If you did a 5K, in the literature, we look at kind of anecdotally really, that you have a little bit of instability around the ankle. How are you feeling about this?
Yeah, I feel like instability in super shoes for me is a real consideration. That one isn't as unstable as some super shoes I've tried, I think, but that's probably the area that caused me most concerns, that kind of like lateral or I guess sort of sideways wobble.
I suppose you're tolerating this really well though, aren't you? Because you've done lots of strength and conditioning. And actually this shoe in particular, it's quite hard at the back anyway. Other super shoes are really flexible, aren't they? So
that's true.
You've really considered that, haven't you, in picking some of your shoes?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think I would think about a little bit of stability, and I think I'm a 4-foot striker. We'll probably find that out, and some people get it wrong. And I think maybe that has allowed me to transition to super shoes in a less problematic way than some people who may go like a heel strike and then suddenly they're being sort of pushed forward. So I haven't had huge issues with it, but I think I've been sensible as well. I haven't thrown normal shoes away and gone, it's just super shoes or nothing from it, you know.
That's a really important kind of marker or parameter really, that you are a forefoot or midfoot striker anyway, and then actually going from this shoe to that shoe isn't a dramatic change for you.
Yes.
And you've done strength and conditioning, and actually kind of you're tolerating this really well. Whereas other people who haven't done S&C maybe are not tolerating it as well.
Yeah, I think so. I was quite into the like barefoot running. This is like just showing my age, but remember when Born to Run came out, and there's a guy, Eric Orton, who is their kind of Born to Run coach. He was really big on foot strength, and I had to go on like wobble boards and like, you know, spreading your toes. I think called toga. Toga. Yeah. So much to the sort of confusion of people around me, but I've done that. I think actually maybe having relatively strong feet is a good thing when you go to super shoes.
Well, it's music to a podiatrist.
Good, yeah.
It is really, because we do want people to have strong feet, we do want people to have awareness as well, and we want you to be informed so you make a decision for yourself.
Yeah.
Perfect. Right, what we're going to do, we're going to stand you up, put all the markers on you. So with 3D gait analysis, we just need to mark you up, everything from ASAS to your knee, to your ankle, to your feet. And then we need to calibrate you. So we've already calibrated the system to look at, well, Richard's going to stand here, he's going to face this way. We're going to calibrate you with the system, and then we're going to then test this shoe versus this shoe. And you know what? There might not be much difference, but there might be. And then it actually feeds into a little bit more awareness about maybe S&C or how you're running. We'll get there. And then at the end, we'll come out with some reports, some variations in that report, and we'll get Jess involved with Run 3D. And we'll discuss the outcome, if that's okay with you.
Sounds good. That's good.
Cool. Let's get you going.
Great.
Let's just slowly start walking. Let's get you warm. Go into a bit of a run.
Yeah.
Let's get up to speed.
Yeah.
And then we'll take these off. You do exactly the same again.
Yeah.
And see what happens at that speed.
Okay.
Which you want to be.
Great.
Is that okay?
Yes, great. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, so we've done the testing then, Liam. What would we find out as a data
Data.
science?
So let me just introduce this data first. So if you look on this little diagram here, the green is the super shoes,
Okay, yeah.
and the purple is the traditional shoes.
Yeah.
So that's the first distinction, because we've mapped these together. Secondly, the triangle is the left, your left leg, left foot, left ankle, and the circle is the right. What we're aiming for really is these little parameters here to be almost kind of in this ideal range in the middle on each one of these graphs.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask Jess from Run 3D just to run through a little bit more fine detail, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, so we've measured lots of different things at your pelvis and at your hip, your knee, and then your ankle. And what I'm going to just do is kind of highlight some of the things where we're finding differences in the way that you're running.
Yeah.
Okay. So the results are really interesting. First of all, we're going to have a look at your pelvis. Okay, so this is how much your pelvis is tilting forward. So you might know my camera's looking at you from the side, and we're just measuring that kind of forward lean effectively.
Yeah.
So that you can see that you have got a slight forward lean.
Yeah.
Okay. Both sides, but we are seeing that in both shoes. Okay, so there's a very slight difference between the green and the purple. You can see on the triangles there and the dots, but it's not a lot.
Okay.
And the super shoes actually are a little bit better, aren't they, at this?
Which is interesting because one would expect the super shoes actually push you forwards, because you did say I feel like I'm being pushed forward a little bit more, but actually that's not the case in what we're measuring.
There you go. I'm an anomaly.
You are.
But what does this cause though, Jess, in terms of here and here? So hip flexion at foot strike and hip extension at toe off, directly related to pelvic tip.
Yeah, so what happens is because the position of your pelvis is slightly forward, that has a knock-on effect at how your hips moving. Okay, so what we're seeing here is because of the position of the pelvis, you've got a high hip flexion at foot strike. So that's imagining this angle here when your foot strikes the ground, and a relatively low hip extension at top. So how far your legs behind you when you're toeing off. Okay, so, but that's directly related to the top one. So if we could try and improve that, simply by kind of thinking to yourself, right, pretend I've got something pulling me up here or tucking my bottom under, then that will have a direct impact on both of these, and they would tend more towards that symmetrical.
Interesting.
Okay.
That's really interesting because both are pretty much the same as well, aren't they? Traditional shoes that we've tested you in, and then your super shoes. However, this is nothing to do with shoes. This is just to do with your pelvis. And actually, whether we change this or not, maybe not, but absolutely, if we tuck the pelvis in a little bit, we'll get possibly some positive outcomes from a biomechanical perspective on these areas of your testing data. And then this was a pelvic obliquity.
Oh, these are great, really good results. So these are what we call like the secondary planes, okay? So when you're running, most of your movement comes from the side. Camera's looking at you from the side, but we also have little amounts of movement looking at you from the front and also looking at you from the top down, okay? So those twisting movements. Whilst these don't directly relate to speed and how fast you're moving, they do have quite important implications for injuries, and they're quite often the things that are linked to a higher incidence of running-related injuries. Now, in your case, again, if you look at the green dots, okay, so the super shoes are the green dots, you're actually more within that grey band and more together, right and left, in the super shoe versus the non-super shoes. Again, actually not what I would have expected to see. You obviously run very nicely in super shoes.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah.
And you feel good though, don't you, in these super shoes as well?
Yeah, definitely. I felt like a little bit of extra bounce, a bit of extra propulsion, and I felt that they're the super shoes that I like running in. So yeah, it's good to see that the data is in some way supporting that.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking probably a few degrees difference here, so it's nothing that you would be able to capture by eye. But say, just interesting to note that you actually become more symmetrical green shoes or these super shoes and the others.
So then just linking this back to you as well, because when we take some data, we have to be individual really and capture this data and think about you as a person. On your left knee, you have previous surgery. So let's have a look at this parameter here. So the green one on this side, which is knee flexion at foot strike, is quite a lot higher really than the right hand side. So can we just speak about this one a little bit as well?
Sure. So this is how much your knee bends when your foot strikes the ground. Okay, so we're looking at landing like this. Now we expect yours to be relatively high because you're landing on your full foot, your midfoot. Okay, so we expect what we call a nice bent knee when you strike the ground. But this asymmetry between your right and your left legs is quite interesting. And the fact it's not coming from your ankles. You see, your ankles are doing the same thing and your hips are actually doing the same thing right and left. For some reason, you are bending that left knee more in both pairs of shoes than your right. When you land, and also at the peak value as well. So the amount that it bends throughout the gait cycle is higher on that left-hand side.
Would that be a sign of weakness, or?
I think if we were to bring this into the clinical impression of this, then definitely maybe having a look at your glute and quads on that left side, and just improving your S&C around that. Possibly directly related to the fact you've had surgery in the past as well. But we know as well by looking at you that left foot is slightly more wobbly as well. So overall, that left leg S&C.
That's where the work needs to be.
But you know that anyway.
That's true. It's good to get it confirmed.
Interestingly, in both shoes, you're not really changing your foot strike. So certainly in the podcast that we did a few weeks ago, we looked at actually if somebody just wears your super shoe for a race and has been in maybe a traditional shoe, it will completely or could completely change their biomechanical profile. So from a midfoot to a forefoot. With you, in your traditional shoes and in your super shoes, you're mid to forefoot anyway.
So your landing position does not change at all between them.
And have I got is there any more kind of sideways wobble of the ankle in any of these?
There is, and it's actually in the super shoe. So you can see this is an eversion max, is that wall you're talking about. So it's the amount that your foot turns inwards, the maximum amount throughout stance, and you can see you've got more movement on the super shoes, in the green, in the purple. And again, in the earlier said we would expect to see that because the super shoe allows the more movement than your more conventional.
Is that because you're higher from the ground?
Yes.
Right.
Could be actually because you can feel the ground in your foot is flatter, you are naturally stiffening yourself,
Okay.
I think,
Yeah.
and you're not doing that in the super shoe because you're letting the shoe do more of the work, but I'm not quite sure how to describe that.
Yeah, no, it's perfect actually. So the shoe has to do a lot more of the work. It propulses you forward. Therefore, your ankle has to compensate in some way. So what we're seeing here from a clinical perspective is your ankle compensating a little bit more. So we've just got to be really clear about your strength and conditioning in both ankles and your calf muscle to make sure that you can actually tolerate this.
Sure. That makes sense to me. I feel like if I said like problem areas, it'd be like slightly weak ankles, and the left-hand side after surgery just causes me slightly more jip. So I think the figures do bear that out.
So I think we got to the so what? We've got the 3D data, we've mapped you, we've looked at your traditional shoes, we've mapped that against your super shoes, but actually there's only a few things that we can focus on because you're a really good responder. You're actually in some of the parameters, especially your pelvic tilt, pelvic obliquity, that we see a lot of injuries related to some of these markers, you're actually better in your super shoes. Which is interesting, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I didn't necessarily expect that. So I've been quite moderate about how much I use these shoes. So to have, to see that actually when I put them on, I'm not, my form's not changing hugely, it's quite reassuring.
But for you, keep with that moderation. Because what it does do to your knee is it causes a little bit more flexion. And to your ankle, it causes a little bit more movement.
Okay. Yeah.
So definitely moderation for you. Everybody's different, but your parameters, your 3D gait analysis, your super shoes do really well for you, and I think you probably get your aim or your 5K aim.
Yeah.
But actually, we just need a little bit of caution around your knee and your ankles.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Thanks so much for talking me through it. It's great. Okay, so I've just finished the gait analysis of Run 3D at Southwest Podiatry, and it's really interesting actually. For me, it looks like I actually am running quite well in the super shoe, which is good news. I want to carry on racing in that shoe. But some moderation is going to be needed, particularly I need to think about strength conditioning around my problematic left knee, and also some ankle stability work needs to be done. So it's really worthwhile and worth doing. Glad I did it, and I think there's something I can go forward with and put into action.